What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sadly, I actually have some. I don't want to completely say it's bad news for everybody here when it comes down to Battlefield, but I think it's going to be a interesting time for EA and how things are going to pan out in the future. It's not going to affect Battlefield 6, so don't worry. What we're going to be playing very shortly is not going to have any issues whatsoever, but the future of the overall franchise could very well be affected in a very negative way. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, before we go and dive deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget subscribing, hit that bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. and the second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Pretty much everything FPS or even third-person shooter related, and I even go ahead and discuss other games like Skate, for example. So, of course, subscribing, hit that bell. And last but not least, I do go ahead and stream Monday through Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys are interested in any of that content, by all means, you can find a link to that channel down in the description of this video. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Before we get into all the nitty-gritty negative news, let me showcase a little something funny to you guys, just to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit before we dive deep into all the harsh details. I actually saw a post by Kolfenstein over on the Reddit page for Battlefield 6 that said, "Proof that advanced movement is broken in this game." Obviously, it's a little bit of a troll post, but they showcased a bug for the tank here, getting absolutely launched. And when I saw this, I was dying. I was cracking up because I never saw this happen within Battlefield 6. And seeing it happen in video format was just... It was really funny, I gotta be real, and I hope that, things like this don't get completely patched out. I know they will, but man, oh man, that's the charm of Battlefield, is that there are really funny bugs that occur on a day-to-day basis. And things like this, although could be very obnoxious at times, I just think it's hilarious. And I barely saw it at all. I never saw it myself personally, so obviously it's not something that happens all the time. But could you imagine seeing this in an actual, match, seeing a tank fly across your screen and slam into a building and crumple the whole thing down? I mean, come on now. That is absolutely freaking hilarious. But ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the negative topic of today's video. As you can see right here from Battlefield Bulletin, breaking. EA has been sold to PIF, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners for $55 billion to go private. And I think someone else did the math, or it was, some more details elsewhere, that after all of this stuff, it's still going to be $20 billion worth of debt left over within this company. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want this all to be negative. There are a few positives with this. First and foremost, Battlefield 6 won't be affected whatsoever, so at least we'll have one last solid Battlefield game before things start to shake up a little bit. If this deal does go through, and there are still possibilities, I know, everybody's saying that it's already done and it's a done deal, but this is going to take at least a year plus to actually completely go through. And within that year, things could definitely fall apart. You never know. It's set in stone right now, but a year is a long time. And things might fumble, and problems might occur, and it might not happen at the end of the day. But the best news is Battlefield 6 won't be affected. And secondly, when it comes down to the company becoming, private, that's not too shabby as well, because again, the company doesn't have to answer to the shareholders anymore. That's one of the biggest problems when it comes to a lot of these games that are being produced nowadays, when it comes to these massive publishers like Activision, for example, and, all these other behemoths, is that a lot of their decisions are made to please the shareholders, right? Not really please the gamers. They don't care about the gamers. They want to make sure that the gamers are, going to open up their wallets, of course, so they'll do the bare minimum to make them happy. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure they make as much cash to please the people who are invested into the overall company. And if they can't make that much cash, they're going to lose investments, and that is a big no-no for them. So 9 times out of 10, all of the decisions that go on within these games are because of the shareholders. So with the company going private, there's no more shareholders to really go ahead and answer to, meaning that the majority of the decisions they make for these games will be for the game itself and to try to make as much cash as possible through, again, people being happy with the overall product. But guys, as like I said, that's really all I could think of when it comes to the positives. Overall, this is going to be a very, very risky thing for the future of the overall Battlefield franchise. Shoot, all the EA products, even when it comes down to like Skate, for example. Pretty much anything that is owned by EA is going to see some interesting things within the future if, of course, this deal goes on through. Another post I saw from Battlefield Bulletin kind of, basically explains things a bit better. According to a new report from the Financial Times, EA's new owner, PIF, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners, will rely on AI as a way to reduce production costs and increase EA's profits in the coming years, with the stated goal of absorbing the colossal $20 billion debt associated with the acquisition. Bloomberg's reporter Jason Schreier, I believe is how you pronounce it. I do apologize for mispronouncing, but Jason claims this debt could mean mass layoffs, more aggressive monetization, and other big cost-cutting measures. And this is the actual post right here from Jason himself. A lot of people are, understandably, focused on the Saudi Arabia and Kushner part of this, but the far bigger immediate impact will come from the new private EA being on the hook for $20 billion in debt. That could mean mass layoffs, more aggressive monetization, and other big cost-cutting measures. Again, basically exactly what Battlefield Bulletin went ahead and quoted there. But this is where the problem really lies. Again, there's going to be $20 billion in debt here, ladies and gentlemen, okay? The companies are going private, and the people who are investing and wanting to, take over are going to have to make this money back. And they're not going to want to go ahead and sit around on this, right? They're going to want to make that money back as soon as possible. So that means a lot of corners are going to be cut. AI is going to be used very heavily, and that is going to result in a lot of jobs being lost in half-assed projects. I mean, look at Call of Duty, for example. They got purchased out by Microsoft, and AI is being used more than ever. You got to keep in mind, Microsoft, it's a big tech company. They are heavily invested in AI. They don't even give a crap, honestly, about the gaming scene. But, purchasing out Activision, they got to make their money back. So what are they going to do? They're going to incorporate everything that they invest in and try to make their money back as quickly as possible within the gaming scene. And that means using a bunch of AI, constantly laying people off. We see it all the time within Call of Duty. And we also see the lack of creativity and, the lack of I guess just genuine art when it comes to Call of Duty nowadays. Over half of the crap that's spewed into the games are AI created, AI generated. I mean, the people who are even working behind the scenes, because again, a lot of AI can't put together a lot of this art, so clearly it gives you the concept and the artist has to still go ahead and tweak it here and there. They're so lazy that they don't even bother polishing off what the AI puts together. They release the ultimate garbage all the freaking time. And I don't blame them. If I was an artist and my job was to monitor AI and then polish it off and make sure it's prepped for the full game, I wouldn't care either. That takes away the whole creative freedom and creative fun of being an artist. And the same thing is about to happen to the Battlefield franchise. Again, as I stated, Battlefield 6 is clear. It's safe. They already went ahead and put together the game. They probably have a year plus worth of content already planned out, and they're probably working on even more content for the second year of the overall Battlefield 6, product here. But, basically, you guys remember when we heard the rumors about Battlefield going on the yearly cycle and how they want to hunt down what Call of Duty is able to generate? Yeah. With this information here, I would not be shocked if, within the next 3-4 years, if the deal goes through, we are going to start seeing them, churn out Battlefield games like we've never seen it before. They're going to be less passionate, less love in the product, more AI used, just more slop. Battlefield will sadly turn it into slop. And that's how they're going to make their money back. They know that Battlefield has a massive, community. They know that it can make a lot of money, regardless if the player count thrives or dies in a Battlefield game. People come back every single time around, right? Battlefield 2042, despite not being a popular Battlefield game whatsoever and being known as the worst Battlefield game, still generated a great amount of money for the initial sales, right? Didn't do good afterwards, but people love Battlefield. They always come back. It's very popular. They know this. They're going to abuse that. They're absolutely going to abuse that. If money is on the line, if $20 billion is on the line, if that is their debt, they are going to do everything in their power to try to accumulate that money back as fast as possible. And that's all I can really think of. And as I stated before, yeah, I could see some positives here. I can see, not having shareholders, behind the scenes dictating certain aspects being a good thing. And I mean, I guess that's the only thing I can really see. That I got to be real. That's the only thing I can really see is that there's no more shareholders. Everything else about this is, I'm going to be honest, extremely freaking scary. And I got to be real, I don't know what the future of Battlefield's going to look like. I'm just very happy and thankful that at least we'll get one more solid Battlefield game. You know what I'm saying? We're at least going to get a bare minimum of one more game that will turn out to be outstanding. And after Battlefield 6, we have no clue what's going to be in store for us. I guess only time will tell. But this is very nerve-wracking. And I'll be real, it's making me think it's going down the same route as Call of Duty. And also the same thing as, Microsoft picking up COD. It's going to be very similar in many ways. And I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing, massive changes coming within the upcoming years. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget subscribing at that bell. I post twice here, once at 8 a.m. and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Everything that's, FPS or third-person related is always discussed on this channel. And we've also been trying to dabble with other games like Skate, for example. So if you guys are interested in any of that content, subscribing to that bell. And last but not least, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next one. Peace out.